Good afternoon, Mr. Gish.
Good afternoon.
You can begin your remarks as you are ready to do so.
Okay. I broke the cycle. Imagine family of 4, 2 kids, a mom who dropped out of high school, and a stepdad sharing a small duplex with limited income. Biological dad is not in the picture, and instead, stepdad likes to remind his kids that they're not actually his. His short fuse leads to abuse of those kids and his wife. This is a common story I heard as a county attorney. Very frequently of defendants I prosecuted, of victims I helped, and of children involved in the juvenile court system. It's a story of generational abuse, where children often acquire the bad traits of their parents and carry it on to the next generation. But this was also my story. This was my childhood. But I did not want to follow that same path. I did not want to be the mirror image of my parents. So I worked hard and I dedicated myself to making a better life for myself, my kids, and more importantly, I wanted to help others who wanted to escape abuse. I taught myself hard work. I worked throughout middle school and high school. I had to support myself in college, so I was working nights, weekends, and summers while my peers were enjoying their college life. It wasn't unusual for me to work more than 40 hours a week while being a full-time student. In law school, I performed Army duties while also working as a law clerk at law firms. In my last 2 semesters, I did all of that, plus worked as a student attorney and balanced my family. I deployed twice, averaging more than 80 hours a week during those tours overseas. On my second deployment in 2020, I performed my military responsibilities while simultaneously providing remote oversight of my county attorney's office in Washington County. I've done these things and I've balanced my career and my family through my persistence and hard work. This would pay off as a judge on the Court of Appeals because they handle a large caseload, and that does not intimidate me. I am compassionate. My experiences as a child taught me to have compassion. For the defendants I prosecuted, it gave me perspective. I gave them dignity and respect, and if they were rehabilitated, I celebrated that success. More importantly, my compassion carried over for the people that were left in the shadows, the victims, the people that were hurt, those that were marginalized by the system. I helped them through their dark days. My experiences, both personal and professional, will help to bring to life the words that are on a screen. I'm a team player. I got here where I'm at because of hard work, no doubt. But I especially want to highlight the fact that I got here because I had help. A good lawyer, a good soldier, knows how to ask for help, knows how to collaborate with his peers. As a soldier, I learned to work with anyone, anywhere, and under any circumstance. As a county attorney, I learned to work with my investigators, my advocates, and even defense attorneys to find justice, to investigate crimes, to review cases. That is essential as a member of the Court of Appeals because they're not making decisions on their own. They are making it as a team. They are reviewing cases together, discussing them together. I am also curious of knowledge, and I embrace ignorance. I'm willing to ask questions. I'm willing to fail. It does not intimidate me. I took tough cases to trial. I seek input because it's not about ego or being the person that comes out on top. It's about being right. I broke the generational cycle of abuse through hard work, compassion, a willingness to learn, and a desire to work with others. My integrity, my diverse legal experiences, and my experience working with victims and clients through their darkest days will ensure that every party that comes before the Court of Appeals will receive justice. I welcome any questions.
Thank you, and we'll start questions with Commissioner Hardkoff.
John, it's good to see you. Thank you for applying for the vacancy. One thing that's clear today, and after having reviewed your application and having the conversation we had on the phone, is that you do have compassion and that you're strong in your nature of supporting those who are vulnerable. Today we've talked about empathy with some of the applicants. Can you answer that question and tell me why empathy is an important thing for a judge on the Court of Appeals to have?
Well, I think it can be hard for a judge on the Court of Appeals to display empathy if they had not been there themselves. But I think it's important because every party, and I've talked about this in interviews, but every party, including corporate CEOs and employers, anybody involved in an appeal is going through a dark time, a tough time. And I think you need to have empathy to appreciate those circumstances. And I don't think that can be said enough about the children cases involved, which represent about a third of all Court of Appeals matters. You need to have empathy to appreciate the circumstances those kids and parents are going through. Thanks.
Commissioner Spies.
Hi, Mr. Gish. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
There's nobody in this room that doesn't have biases and prejudices, and we have to put those in check or face them. What biases or prejudices do you feel that you have that you would have to set aside or challenge?
Well, I think I exposed some of my biases today. I, as a prosecutor, I had to confront everything that I ever experienced as a kid. And so I realized as a prosecutor, I developed as a child biases towards domestic abusers. And so that's something that I have confronted on a daily basis, something that I thought about at great length leading up to today, I can assure you of that. But because I'm aware of it, I think I'm better prepared, and I was as a prosecutor for sure. Thank you.
Commissioner Hanson.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for applying. If a case required you to learn about a specific industry or subject matter, how would you go about doing that?
Well, I think I've never been afraid of Google, even as a lawyer. That would be somewhere I would not hesitate to look at. I wouldn't be reluctant to reach out to anybody I might know associated with that could educate me.
Thank you.
Commissioner Stanger.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Gish, Major Gish to me, I suppose. I want to say two things. First, thank you for your extensive years of service to our country. I know that's not easy in
To
the
you,
context of what you do, so really appreciate on behalf of Iowans, thank you for what you do. Second, congratulations on your newborn. I understand, right, you guys have expanded your family.
Yeah, July 4th, Independence Day baby.
Yeah. So I think, what we've heard in your opening remarks is very passionate about the law on that. What do you do to unwind from all of the intensity of our careers? Besides, of course, now changing diapers and
Yeah.
running after the other two.
A lot of late nights.
And I know you like beats as well, I heard.
Yes,
so.
yeah, passionate about beats. I get up every morning at 4 a.m. and I work out. I mean, that is my number one escape. So I worked out this morning and I will work out again tomorrow morning, and I will keep doing that. I talk about my past. I've seen a therapist. I'm not ashamed to say that. And I think that's important. I think we as a profession, lawyers already are, have a high rate of suicide, chemical dependency, and prosecutors especially. I mean, I've dealt with, as highlighted in my application, some very dark stuff. So I just work through it through exercise, being with my family.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioner Picklap?
Yeah, thanks. Just want to echo the comments made. Thank you for your application. Thank you for your service. And there is hope. My wife is a July 4th baby. But for her judgment in men, she turned out just fine.
Appreciate
Nothing
that.
else from me.
And I want to say for the record, I believe our interview happened the day after. I didn't know anything about this, and you mentioned off the cuff that you had a baby the night before.
Yeah,
so
and there
I-
were a few of you I interviewed with afterwards, and thank you for being flexible and meeting with me over the phone instead of in person.
Yes. So Commissioner Semmelroth?
There's been a lot of discussion today about the value that somebody coming out of a rural practice environment would add to the appellate court. So I want to give you a chance to talk about that.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. Well, I think coming out of a rural area, especially in criminal law, we faced a shortage of court reporters, of defense attorneys, and we didn't have enough district court judges, so that meant we didn't have enough trials. And that, I think, delayed justice. Being in a rural community, your justice should not depend on where you live. It should be uniform. And so that's something that I really care about. The other thing that I thought about coming into this was, as a county attorney in a small community, I knew just about everybody there. And so integrity and the value of the appearance of the judicial system depends on how I handled those cases as a county attorney. I mean, I backed out of cases just because the victim was my son's daycare provider, just because I didn't want people to think that I had any favoritism or biases. So knowing people was something that I really had to address as that.
Commissioner Roberts?
So, John, you have kind of an interesting blend of experiences being in now the AG's office, but also the county attorney's office, and then part of that with Disability Rights Iowa. How do you think that your blend of sort of subject matter experiences will help you on the Board of Appeals?
I think it'll allow me to review cases with ease, or at least easier. So having that employment law to start off at a law school will help. You know, I think what my focus has been is in criminal law and in juvenile delinquency and child cases. And those two issues make up roughly 60% of all cases before the Court of Appeals. And I think that is relevant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Schnur?
Mr. Gish, again, thank you. It's nice to see you again.
Good to see you.
We've talked a little bit about independence of the judiciary. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about that, what that means to you, and if you're on the Court of Appeals and your day-to-day work, how is that implemented and lived out?
Well, I would really rely on my experience as a county attorney. The Court of Appeals polices itself, really, and as a county attorney, I policed myself. I cared about not just impropriety, but the appearance of impropriety. It was important that the Court of Appeals and the county attorney's office perform cases, review, and execute the law in a way where people don't question my motives.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioner Hoytink?
One of the things we've talked a lot about today, directly or indirectly, has to do with kind of different experiences and different perspectives that can come to the bench with those different experiences. And before I ask the question, thank you for your honesty and your vulnerability today. Just I'm blown away by it, so thank you. Your current role is maybe a little bit different, a little less advocacy based. I understand you wanted to maintain your advocacy skills, so do maintain a little bit of a docket, but you're managing a big program and managing a major budget, managing a team. How does that experience translate to making you a better applicant than you were before you took that role?
I think that's a wonderful question. I never thought I'd leave the county attorney's office. I really enjoyed that work. But getting an opportunity to to help victims, not just in Washington County, but across the state, was really what drove me to the position. I think my experiences that I've gotten from it is that aid in my application has to do with diving deeper into the rules, diving deeper into Chapter 915 of the Iowa Code. And also, I take care of a lot of appeals. So if a victim is denied compensation, that appeal comes to me, and I review it and make that final decision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hoag?
Kind of piggybacking off his question, the role you have now is fairly new, right? January this year?
That's right.
Okay, so I guess why, I mean, this opening came up, and are you okay to step away all of a sudden from it? Or like what kind of drove you to apply, even though you have a new position right now?
Yeah, I think this was something that came to me in April, this position, and I guess I feel called to do it, is probably as silly as that sounds, but I think this really appeals to me, the variety of issues, working with the team, and I don't want to pass this up. I don't want to wait.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioner Parrish?
Well, I've seen both former Judge Bennett since your interview with me, and also Roxanne Conlon yesterday in Minneapolis. And I've told both of them they've done a good job with you. So,
They sure did. They sure did.
with that in mind,
Good.
I want to ask you, what other qualities about yourself, knowing that you have a background, not just as a prosecutor, but in other positions too, that can assure us, or as commissioners, that you will also see the side of the defendant when you take a look at the case, no matter how horrific it might be, to talk about how you will not become result-oriented, so to speak.
Yeah, I think that is something I've thought a lot about as well. And I think if you talk to the defense attorneys I've worked with, I think they would tell you that I was very fair, transparent in how I operated as a county attorney. I felt that as a county attorney, I was the guardian of the truth. I told people that because it was my obligation to get justice, and that didn't mean going to prison. That meant finding a resolution that rehabilitated the defendant and got some semblance of justice for a victim. So and I think my personal experiences, I know a lot of defendants have same stories or similar stories to mine. And I probably share a lot in common with the people I prosecuted. So I think those two items is what I would offer.
Thank you, and thanks for your application.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Henderson?
I have no questions, but I want to thank you for your service and congratulations on the new baby. Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioner Markwart?
I'm going to echo Commissioner Henderson's both comments and the fact that I have no questions for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Pearson?
And I have no questions either, but thank you and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Chase?
Same for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Got time for one?
You do. Commissioner Graber?
I'm going to break that cycle. For example, in private practice, maybe you have a scoreboard that says how much money that you brought in to your business, to your practice. In the Court of Appeals, how are you going to, what's going to be your scoreboard on how good of a judge that you are serving in that capacity?
Well, I think the easy one is how often the Supreme Court would overturn me. But otherwise, I don't know that I would necessarily keep track or keep scored. I think every case is individual and independent of the next.
Thank you. We appreciate your application and wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.